Hello and welcome to lesson 2 of my sewing school. I am your host, Michelle, and I'm very glad you're here. This is going to be such a fun sewing series. I have accumulated over the years a wide variety collection of vintage sewing books. And for this series, we will be focusing on using these vintage 1985 4-H booklets. I have most of the series, as well as various other vintage sewing books I pick up from my local used book and physical media and toy store. It's a great store. And today we will be focusing on the machine, all about the sewing machine. So I will be using, and I'm putting up a little bit of footage here, I will be using the blue Kenmore sewing machine. This is my very first sewing machine that I learned to sew on back in the early 2000s. It was a gift, and it sat for a long time until I finally had my mother show me how to use it. But I never really learned how to... I just learned enough to be dangerous, as they say. So that's what the series is all about. I want to learn better and more. So join me. 4-H booklet will be our main booklet. But then there's also a really cool article in here about... where is it? I should have marked it a little bit better, huh? So sorry. Marked a lot in here. Okay, about the difference between computerized sewing machines and mechanical sewing machines. And I do have a computerized sewing machine down on the floor here, but I'm not going to be using that for the sewing school. So anyway, B-roll footage of me cleaning the machine. That's our first step. And then oiling the machine. I'm going to show you where it needs to be oiled. If you have a similar machine like this one, that's a mechanical, what they call a mechanical sewing machine, so there's no computer in it. There's no display or digital components to it at all. If you have one like this, it should be oiled in the same spots, I would assume, but check your manual. Now, if you have acquired a sewing machine that does not have the manual with it, do not fret. I do happen to still have mine, but I have been able to find mine online for free in various places. So if I can find this little bitty Kenmore sewing machine, I know you can find yours. So I will link some places below where they have a vast library of sewing machine manuals in PDF form that you can download for free. So I'll link all that below. So you can find your manual, just so you can oil it properly and troubleshoot it a little bit better than I can show you, a little bit easier, or this can show you. So yes, if you need your manual to help troubleshoot and oil it properly, I'm gonna link those below. So otherwise, we will be using this, and I will be using my manual. So I was able to clean the machine, obviously, but I don't have the proper sewing machine oil. I have used 3-in-1 oil in the past, and you're really not supposed to use that. So I'm not going to promote that we use that. If you have it on hand, I'm going to be buying some proper sewing machine oil from Walmart. So, let's see. So what's first? Cleaning, oiling, where to find manuals, went through that. Okay, so we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty. Now this is probably, for me, the least fun portion of this series, going through the anatomy of the machine. So I'm going to turn you around. All right, so last week I told you that you would need your sewing machine, bobbins, at least one bobbin, needle, and some type of thread for the machine. Now, because I've had this machine for so long and I haven't used it in so long, it's almost like I'm newly acquiring it. So if you have newly acquired a machine, this will be very helpful for you. So I have a lot of different bobbins, and I actually do know that this machine takes metal bobbins, and this is my little crazy sewing tin that I have. And here are the metal bobbins. Now I know that this machine takes these, but I don't remember if it likes this kind or this kind. So I'm going to have to check the manual, and we're going to have to test some things out, because there are a bunch of different sizes of bobbins in this world, and machines are very finicky about which bobbins they like, as well as which thread kind they like. And I kind of remember this machine not liking like the Sewology thread, I think. So we're going to be going through that too, and I'm going to show you which bobbin, how to figure out which bobbin your machine wants and which thread it wants. So going to be a lot of information in this video. All right, let's get to work here. All right, here are the diagrams, illustrations from the 1985 4-H book of just a general mechanical sewing machine. It is a little bit different than mine, but it's not so different that if this is all I had, I couldn't do anything with it. And then this is my sewing machine manual. Illustrations for that. Much simpler, right? Okay, so let's see. Stitch selector is going to be this big old knob right here. Try and keep that from being blurry. I might just put it up on the screen here so you can see it better. Number 2 is this little doohickey called the reverse stitch control. So when you do the reverse stitch in these mechanical sewing machines, you pull this down and the needle goes backwards. Bobbin winder spindle is number 3. That's here. That's where we will wind our bobbin in just a few minutes. Bobbin winding tension disc is here. This is where when we thread our machine, it pulls the tension tight. Upper needle thread guide is number 5. This is back here. Again, it just threads the thread through it. Thread pickup lever or lever. Do we say lever or lever? Is there a difference? I don't know. Well, I need to move the hand wheel up. That's what this is. Thread tension dial is number 7. That's right here. Face cover right here. Needle plate right here. Extension table or accessory box right here. And in mine, I have just a few accessories. A few needles. Whoop, one fell out. Buttonhole. Oh, you can't see any of this, can you? Buttonhole. Darning plate cover. Needles. My bobbin case, apparently. And my bobbin. And a zipper foot. And I'm not sure. This goes to this one. And I'll get to that a little bit later as to why. I'll put all this back in here. Okay. Hand wheel. on the side here. This moves the needle up and down. See if I can zoom in a little bit here for you. See? I don't have a needle in it yet, but you can see it go up and down. Get it back out for you. Power switch on the side. Turns it off and on. Number 13, machine socket. Not real sure what that is. Oh, that's where the plug-in goes into. And then the spool pin is in the back here. Just out of frame, of course. But it's back here. And that is where the thread will go. Free arm. I'm guessing is this what they're calling a free arm? Yes. This part. So if you're sewing a sleeve or anything that's round, you would take this off, and the fabric is able to, anything circular will fit on there really well. Presser foot lifter is back here. That puts the presser foot, which is here. Let me zoom in a little bit for you. You can see it go up and down, hopefully. Yeah, I don't know if you can kind of see it back here or not. So, there we go. You can see it. Number 18, they're calling, oh, the set screw. That, let me see if I can get you around there. Okay, so this is the set screw right here. This is what takes the presser foot off and on. Now this machine has a, what do they call this, a high shank or a full shank presser foot. So the whole thing goes on here versus, okay, so there is a rogue presser foot inside of my little accessory box here. And you can tell that there's a big difference. These do not go to, let me back up just a little bit. These do not go to, both go to this machine. So this one has this shank on it. That's what my machine takes. And this one goes on, I'll put the picture here of my computerized sewing machine. This goes on a different one. So just kind of a little tidbit information there, comparison. Okay, and then needle clamp screw is this little doohickey, and that is exactly what it sounds like. Loosen it up, put the needle in there, and then put it all the way up as far as it'll go, and then you tighten that up. And that's what holds the needle in place. So that is all of the parts, for the most part, on the outside anyway. We're going to open it up. And I'm going to talk about the bobbin and the bobbin parts. So, okay, so let's take this off and talk about the bobbin area. So, this, because it actually does not, I don't know that it goes into it. Oops, so sorry, I hit the camera. Alright, so my book mentioned it, but it doesn't mention it for a while. So I kind of went forward a little bit. So, they're calling this the shuttle cover. I'll open that. Give you a nice close-up of that, hopefully. And my bobbin and things are not in there. But I think they're in here. There. And then there's the bobbin that was in the machine. Okay. So, move this out of the way for right now. Get to that in just a second. Okay, so this is the, what are they calling all of these parts? All right, so they are calling this the bobbin case. Nice little metal situation here, and it's got this cute little latch on it that helps you put it in here and take it out. The bobbin goes in it a certain way, and then you hold the little latch, unless it's easier for me to do it that way, and you insert it just like that. So that's the bobbin case. That's the bobbin. Alright, I'm going to take this apart. I'm having trouble finding the official names of these parts, but I do know how to take them apart and put them back in, so I guess we'll do that. And I have already cleaned, but if you turn the hand wheel, you can see that's kind of what it does. Oops. And okay, so this is the shuttle hook. And that only goes in here one way. So it's pretty easy to get in there. And then this, I feel like, should be called something that I should know. Okay, they seem to be just calling this whole mechanism the shuttle. So, let's see if I can figure out how to get this back in here. There we go. Should just go in one way. And then these little tabs go back over. Okay, so putting the bobbin in. I have no idea what kind of thread this is because it's been sitting for forever, but we'll thread it since we got it here. Alright, so my manual says to place a bobbin in the bobbin case. Okay, bobbin case, bobbin. Make sure the thread feeds clockwise from the bobbin. And it has a picture, and I'll try to show that up on the screen as well. Now the problem I've always had with this is that they do it as if you are right-handed and I am left-handed. So it's always a little backwards and takes me an extra minute or two. So, clockwise from the bobbin. And honestly, this is something that I have to think about every single time I change my bobbin out. I'm not real sure why, but I do. Okay, so the picture shows it like this, and the thread is going this way, and there's an arrow, right? So, I'm just going to do that. And then you spin it around, and you're going to put the thread through this little bitty spot here, and it will snap. I don't know if you can hear that, but you can definitely feel it. And looking at the pictures, yep, that looks right to me. Yes, snap. Okay, and then we're going to put it in. So I'm going to hold this little thing, I'm going to open this, and I'm going to pop her in there. Ta-da! So That should be good. All right, let's put this presser foot on there. This is just a regular style presser foot for this machine. And very simply, I just pull up the little lever so I can get it underneath, thread it through. Let me get a little bit closer for you. And then I just turn this to tighten it. I just usually just finger tighten it, but I guess you could take a little bitty screwdriver and really tighten it if you felt you needed to, but and it's ready to go. So next step is going to be putting in a needle. Now I have this pack, let me zoom you out a little bit. I have this pack of universal needles, which will be absolutely fine. And I do like to, unless I just absolutely know that these are brand new and have not been used, which I do not know that these have not been used, I do like to put it down on a flat surface, like my table here. I'll move this stuff around. Very awkward, sorry about that. And I do like to make sure it's not just super warped. This one's definitely not. It is very flat. And I like to, you know, touch it to the tip of my finger to make sure it's actually sharp. Yep, it is sharp. And there you go, because I have learned over the years that it's really not worth trying to use a needle forever and ever, because they do get dull and they start tearing your fabric and they start shredding your thread, and it's just a big old mess. It's really not worth it. So I think the recommendation of changing needles out, it's usually after a big project. I mean, some things will say like after each project, or when you change or going to be using a different kind of fabric. So I'm going to be using cotton fabric with this needle, so that means when I go to change away from cotton fabrics or onto a really big project or a very different project or something, you would change the needle. I don't know, it's very complicated. I just kind of can tell now that they need to be changed out. So another thing I struggle with still to this day is which way the blame needle goes. So I think for the most part, the flat part, okay, so it has a rounded edge side and a flat side, right? And I think the flat side goes that way, and so the rounded is facing you. But I always double check. See if it tells me somewhere easy. I think it does. My little manual here. Winding a bobbin, we'll do all that in a minute. And mine does have a nice little chart of what needle to use for what fabric, which is always handy. And I think it has somewhere, yes, okay, that's right here. So it gives you a nice little diagram, and it has you put something flat so you can make sure it's nice and ready to go. And with the flat side to the rear, right here, flat side to the rear. Push it up as far as it goes. Tighten the needle clamp screw firmly by turning it clockwise. Place the flat side of the needle onto something flat. The gap between the needle and the flat surface should be consistent. Never use a bent or blunt needle. It can cause damage, blah, blah. Okay, so let me see if I can zoom in without it being too crazy looking. And okay, flat side is to the back, and it's in there in the spot, and it is up as far as it will go. And I'm gonna turn the wheel, keep it nice and tight. Ta-da! And that's it. So we got that. So we have our bobbin in there. Now also what it'll have you do in a second when we thread it is marry these two to where both threads are up top, but we'll do that in a minute. So we have a bobbin in here ready to go. We have a presser foot, we have a needle, and we just need to, I'm going to show you how to wind a bobbin, even though I have a bunch of bobbins. And I have a bobbin in there. I'm still going to show you how to wind one on here. And mainly because that was something I was terrified of when I first started sewing for a long, long time. Yeah, so I am going to show you how to wind a bobbin with the machine, because that, for me, and threading the machine, because that was two of my top things that I was terrified of doing, and that my mother did for me for a long, long time, till I finally read through my manual and figured out how to do it myself. So, I'm going to do that. We're going to do that together. Changing presser feet, selecting needle and fabric, bobbin winding. Here we are. Winding the bobbin. I haven't done this on this machine in a long time, so I'm going to be kind of right there with you. Okay. Oh, you pull out the hand wheel. Nice. I remember that. And, well, I'm stumped. Nowhere in my book, my manual for my machine, or any of my sewing literature does it talk about bobbin sizes or types for different machines. Now, obviously I don't expect some of the older ones, like the ones from the 60s and 70s, to talk about that, because there weren't that many options. And back then, and even in the 80s, more than likely, if you were given a machine by someone, it had bobbins already with it. So you just used them, or you bought the machine new. So, but I checked in my manual for this machine as well as the manual for my computerized, fancy, newer machine. Nowhere in there does it talk about what size bobbin you need to use, and it does matter. And so that's kind of shocking to me and disheartening, because I was really wanting the series to be as analog as possible, meaning not have to look up a bunch of stuff online. But you're going to have to look it up online. So if you have acquired a machine and it does not have any bobbins with it, if you can at least use common sense, and if the insides look like this, let me take this off. The insides look like this, and the bobbin case, if it has one, is metal. You know, this is metal, the insides are metal, except for the thing holding it together, that's plastic, but everything else is absolutely metal. If it's metal, then you will need a metal bobbin. Something to do with the weight distribution. And if the bobbin holder mechanism here is facing out, then you'll probably need a metal bobbin versus if there's one facing out versus with my computerized one, it's a drop down. It drops in. Then, and it takes plastic bobbins. But I only know that because it came with bobbins. And even with my computerized, I have this little bobbin wheel holder thing. So sorry. And it has two different kinds of bobbins in it. And I just kind of use them interchangeably. But, so, see, this is my frustration. My frustration is I have to look up online. Sorry, I messed up my camera angle now. I have to look up online what size bobbin my machine takes. But if you're looking up the manual for your machine anyway, you might as well go ahead and look up the bobbin, because it's not going to tell you in the manual. So I guess it's not that big of a deal. And or, like I have two, okay, so I know this mechanism is metal. So I know that it will take a metal bobbin, but I do have two different ones. And they are different. I mean, this is so silly. They're quite different. They're different sizes. Like this one on the left here is a little bit taller than the one on the right. So they are different. This is the one that was actually on my machine. This is the one I used last, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the right one. It might be this one. So the problem with just putting some thread on these and trying them all out is that if you're not careful, you'll break a needle. Best case scenario, you'll break a needle. I don't want to break a needle. I only have 3 regular universal needles in my possession. I really don't want to go through them trying to figure out which blade bobbin I need to use. Super annoying. So I'm just going to do process elimination. I know it's one of these metal ones for this machine. I know it's one of the metal ones. going to start with this one because that was the one that was in the machine. And I'm just going to go with that. And, you know I had to look it up, but now I know that this machine takes a class 15 bobbin, and these are class 15 bobbins, but these might be 15J bobbins. So, but I have this 10. I mean, the whole thing is just so silly. I have this 10 full, and I mean, this really gives me no indication. I have this one, has thread in it. I have this one, I have plastic ones that have thread in them. So, I'm thinking, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. You're just going to have to look it up online. I hate saying that because I was really wanting this to be analog, but you're just going to have to look it up, and it kind of sucks. But we're going to move on from it. So, for my machine, I am fairly confident that it is this bobbin right here. So, I'm going to show you how to, regardless of what it is, I'm going to show you how to wind the bobbin. Alright, now that my rant is over, we are going to wind the bobbin. I am going to use my manual instructions, and I'm not going to assume that I remember how to do this. So, we're just going to follow along here together. Okay. Release the clutch by pulling out the hand wheel right here. This will stop the needle from moving while you wind the bobbin. Draw thread from the spool. Okay, I need a spool of thread. I'm just going to use this one. I don't remember if this machine doesn't like the Sewology, so we're going to find out. And it shows it going here, and then there's also some handy little instructions on top of my machine here. Place the spool of thread on the spool pin with the thread coming from the front of the spool, okay, but going this way. Okay, coming from the front of the spool, going this way, according to both pictures, okay. Number 3, guide the thread around the thread guide, like this. Number 4, pass the thread between tension discs, which is right here. So it clicks like that. Number 5, thread through the hole in the bobbin from the inside to the outside. Okay. I don't have any empty ones like these, so I'm just going to do this one, just so you can see how to wind it. And it does have 3 regular size holes, and then this one's smaller, so I'm going to use that one. So, have my thread. This is hard to do on camera and still see what I'm doing. Okay. So from the inside out, that's what that looks like. Okay. And then put the bobbin on the bobbin winder spindle, like this. Push the bobbin to the right. It snaps in place. With the free end of the thread held in your hand, like this, depress the foot control. Stop the machine when it has made a few turns and cut the thread close to the hole in the bobbin. Okay. Well, I don't have my foot on. Hold on a minute. All right, here we go. Let's turn it on. Always helps. Okay, I did a few. It got wrapped around, but I don't know if that's enough or not. Okay. And then it wants me to snip this. That's what I do with my other machine, so. Okay, so then we take this off. It stops automatically, it says. To its original by pushing it over, and it's a little tough to get off of there. I'm going to snip the thread with scissors that need to be sharpened. And here is a wound bobbin. Looks pretty good, actually. And then here's what's left of my thread. So that's one reason why it was making so much racket, because it didn't have enough weight on it. And I didn't have the little felt piece that goes underneath it to soften it. I will add that before I start sewing. All right, so that's done. Now let's put it in the machine. All right, I'm going to follow the instructions on how to insert the bobbin again, just to make sure. And just so you can see it again. Let's see, so it's me to hold it like this. And the thread needs to be winding out. Like that. There's a little snug going in there, and then this goes in between that little snippet there. You just pull it down till it kind of snaps in two, and this does not turn. Ooh. See? Let's do that again. Let me zoom you out so you can see. Watch my struggles. All right. It is jammed in there. So, let's see. Okay, like it's jammed in there. See, this is the other problem with not knowing what. Okay, I had to take a pin and like shimmy it up. That does not fit. Okay, that is really thick. So, okay, well, I'm not going to use this bobbin, but it's still, so lesson to learn is this bobbin is too full, I think. So, you know, it kind of comes out past, and it fits really tight in there anyway. So it probably doesn't need any thing. Let's see if I have one that's like full but not bursting. Here's one. Okay, so here's, hopefully you can tell the difference. So, see, that's got just a smidge of room. But this is also the other bobbin style. So, but see, it slides right in there, comes right back out. Whereas this one, let me try one of the other ones. Okay, this one's empty. Let's try an empty one. Okay, yeah, the empty one fits. Okay. So this one is too full. So I'm actually going to just take some off of it, just for the purposes of demonstrating and showing, you know, real struggles here. It's okay to not get it right the first time, even when you're following the instructions. It's really okay. Okay, so see there, taking just a little bit off. So that means I might need to adjust this little doohickey at the top where you wind it, but it's a problem for another day. So yeah, I think if I'd had the felt pin on my thread, felt piece on the thread, and was able to keep it still, it probably wouldn't have wound it like that. But okay, let's see how this goes. Oh, there we go. See? Okay. Now, I wanted to show all of that, you know, because sometimes you don't get it right. Sometimes you just gotta try again. Okay. So I'm looking at the instructions. I'm holding it this way. The thread is coming away from me like that. I'm dropping it in. And I am trying to do this on the camera, looking through the camera, but that's really hard. Okay. So all I'm doing is pulling it through that little spot and then down. Hear that? And it clicks. Yep. And then we hold the little latch open and we put it in here. It only goes in there one way. And there we go. So now, okay, now I'm going to thread the machine. We're going to marry the two, and we will be ready to sew, which is kind of crazy. Okay, so I think I need to adjust this thing. So it has a screw right there, and it can be adjusted. So I think I need to move it over to where it doesn't allow the bobbin to feel so full. So super easy adjustment. Not a big deal at all. Okay, we're going to thread the machine. All right, all I have is this big felt piece, so I'm going to use that for now. And I'm going to use some of this Sewology thread. Okay, raise the thread take-up lever to its highest position by turning the hand wheel counterclockwise, which is going to be toward me, until this is all the way up and starts going back down like that. Raise the presser foot. It is raised. Place a spool on the spool pin with thread coming off as shown. Oh, okay, so this thread actually, this spool, so it needs to be going this way. So I think these are interchangeable, yeah. So you can put this on either end, depending on how it needs to come out of the machine. Putting it right there. Oh, I need to put my felt piece on there. Putting it on there. Hopefully this works. If it doesn't, we'll try something else. And then it will go through here, around the upper thread guide. Draw the end of the thread down around the check spring holder. Check spring holder, they're calling this a check spring holder. So it just goes through this little slit and down. I'll turn the machine off a little bit so you can see a little better. Okay, so it just comes down through this slit, and it's got a little bitty arrow. Whoops, sorry. Right there. It comes straight back up. And it comes through here. And it's got some more arrows at the top. There's more arrows here at the top. Telling me which way to wrap it around. And then it needs to kind of sit in that little spot there. And then it comes back down right in that same slit. Firmly draw the thread up from right to left over the take-up lever and down into the take-up lever I. Yep. Like that. Slide the thread behind the needle bar thread guide on the left. Yes. Okay, let me slide you down. It's a close up, huh? Okay. So it's going to be this little doohickey right here. Whoops. Right there. And then you thread the needle. Oh, that is fuzzy. You don't like that, does it? Okay. And then you're going to thread the needle from front to back. And I always clip it at an angle like this. So you got a little bitty angle with your thread, so it's a little easier. Now my mother had some kind of threader thing with her machine, and my newer machine has it too, where it comes down and it threads it for you. I never use it, but I will say it needs to be up as far away from the presser foot as it will go, because you just don't have enough room. And then I always put my finger behind it, behind the hole, so I can see where it is. till I can wiggle it through. And ta-da. Now, however you need to make that happen, make it happen. It's no shame here. Do whatever you got to do to thread that together. Okay, and then last step is drawing up the bobbin thread. So you'll raise the pressure foot is raised. Hold the needle thread lightly with your left hand. That's going to be this one. And rotate the hand wheel counterclockwise, which is going to be toward you for one complete turn. It's going to go all the way down, and it's going to come back up, and it's going to make a little loop. It's going to pull that up. And then I usually have tweezers or something handy to pull it up. Oop. I'm twisted already. And then I just kind of maneuver them around until they are both underneath and in between the pressure foot there. And I'll pull them out. I like to make sure they can, you know, you have a little bit of tension, but not a whole lot of tension. You can pull them out fairly easily, but not super easily. And we'll kind of have our little general, and that is how you thread the machine. So the machine has been cleaned. Let's say it's been oiled. I have a wound bobbin. We have complained about bobbins, and I have put the bobbin in, and we've put the needle in, and we've threaded the machine. So we are ready technically to do some kind of test sewing. Okay, so if you have a mechanical, if you're using a mechanical sewing machine like I am here, we have a few more settings we need to do before we can sew. But if you have a computerized one, it kind of does these next steps for you, which is so nice. But it's good to know how to do it anyway. So we are going to be adjusting the needle thread tension for a straight stitch. So, and I have some illustrations here. And theoretically what you're looking for is that it looks the same on the top and the bottom. So let's kind of do, this looks like it, a number 4 is kind of the middle ground. So let's start there. I'll put my little thing back on. I'll need to grab some fabric. And did I push this in? Yeah, okay. Gotta push that in or it's not gonna sew. Alright, so I'm gonna put this on a straight stitch. I'll zoom in here for you a little bit. There's a straight stitch. I guess 1, 2, and 3 are all 3 straight stitches, but yeah, so we're going to go for a 1, and then we're going to put this on 4. And we're going to start there. So this looks like, all right, here's my scrap of fabric, and here goes nothing. Let's see what it does. Turn it on. Okay, so if you can't tell, it should sound a little bit smoother than that because it needs to be oiled. So just take note of that kind of sound. That is a little clunky sounding. It needs to be oiled. But I have the right needle in there. I think I have the right bobbin in there. So yeah, pretty sure it's oiling. Okay, so what my computer, my other sewing machine has got me spoiled to is now there's no thread cutting button. So I think the ruling is with these that you make sure the needle is out, raise your lever, you pull it out, and it should come out fairly easy, and then you snip your thread, and then you place them again, get them placed again. So let's see what this looks like. Okay, test sewing take 2. That was a terrible choice. I need a darker fabric because my thread is so light. Duh. Okay, try again. The machine is running a little slow as well, so that's another indication that it needs to be oiled. Okay, and then you take the needle out, lift the presser foot, and I think mine actually has a little bitty hook back here somewhere, and it will cut the thread. Yeah, it does. You can also just do scissors. Okay. Okay, so that is a very small stitch. I'm not sure I even use that small of a stitch normally, but it looks pretty good tension-wise. Yeah, that looks pretty good, right? Okay, let's try number 20. That should be a slightly wider stitch. I feel like that's a little tight. So okay, yeah, so it obviously sews quicker because it's a bigger stitch, but it's still a little clunky sounding, so it still could use some oiling. Okay, so there's the bigger stitch. And it looks pretty good. That's what you want it to look like. So this is puckering just a little bit, so I think I need to turn my dial down to like in between the 3 and 4. I can do that. Yeah. Okay, so let me do that and then do the same one, the number 2 again. Okay, pull it out, cut it. Oh yeah. Yeah, that loosened up substantially. Yeah, so this is at the 4, it is puckering, and then this is at like 3.5, and it's really smooth. So that's okay. So closing remarks, that went really well. I'm pretty happy with that. I ended up just using mostly my sewing machine manual because it used my actual machine. And it was a little confusing for me to use this because it's so different than my machine. But it does give a lot of information, so I will scan this in and share it with you as a PDF. So that'll be linked below in the description, as well as those sites I mentioned of where you can get your sewing machine manuals downloaded for free. Those will be down below. And yeah, this does have a lot of really nice information. So if you did have trouble with it, we lucked out, and I'm just kind of shocked that this machine is still kind of ready to go. It needs a little bit of oiling and it's really ready to go. So yeah, but I'll link this down below. I'll scan that in and share that with you. And next week, I'm gonna scan this article in too, the one that compares computerized and mechanical sewing machines. It's a really good little read, so I'll just kind of share that with you, just for funsies. And then next week, all right, so next week, we are going to be learning all about the pattern envelope. Dun, dun, dun. So this little thing goes through all the details of the pattern envelope, which is so nice. And then it goes into detail of measuring and things. But our first project is going to be something we don't need to measure our bodies for yet. So I had a couple of comments of people saying maybe a sewing machine cover would be a good first project, and I definitely agree. So I'm still tossing back and forth between sewing machine cover and or the chair cover caddy thing. So, but this is next week. We will start the process of learning how to read these using information from our 4-H booklets, and this is just like from one of those magazines, the vintage magazines from '79. So we'll learn how to read all of that. We'll go over supplies that we will need for our first projects, whatever first project you want to do. And I will be going into detail on what to do with all of this stuff, kind of thing. Super excited for that. I have already chosen my fabrics, and it's just some scrap fabrics that will look cute in this room. And this is for the chair cover. So go ahead and pick you out some fabrics to use, preferably just cotton, quilting cotton fabrics. Nothing fussy or fiddly. Just to try out. These are going to be mine. They're just little scrappy things. They don't even really go together, but I don't care. I think it'll be cute. Good little scrappy project. That's going to be mine. And if I come across some kind of fabric in here, I might go ahead and do the sewing machine cover too. But yeah, that'll be next week. Go over this. And we are getting closer to actually sewing. Yeah, so join me next week. Have your pattern picked out. Be gathering your fabric. And we're going to be learning all about this. So, like, comment, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this. I'm really enjoying this series, and I hope that you are learning, or at least being entertained. And I will see you next week.